I believe we all know humans are creatures of habit. It's no secret that if you took a map and drew lines based off of where you go in your daily routine, that you would end up going to the exact same places. That is, if you actually get out of your house. In order to live life to the fullest, you must know how to control your habits. So in this video, I'll be going over the 5 most important lessons I've learned from James Clear's Atomic Habits. I will also be providing one example per topic to make it easier to understand. So without wasting any more time, here's the most valuable lessons that I've learned from Atomic Habits.
Number 7. Student watches porn and gets naked.
In the first chapter of the book, Clear hits us with one of the biggest realizations you could ever make in life, and proves it with math. This is the law, not belief. A lot of people mistake it for belief. That growth is exponential in any skill or metric of skill in life. He believes that as long as you're improving 1% a day, sooner or later you will hit a threshold where all of the hard work you've done will pay off. To prove this, you can calculate it yourself with a simple equation. All you do is take away 1% or add 1%. So if you're taking away 1% to decrease a percentage a day, you do 0.99 to the exponent of 365 days for, a year, and that'll give you a return of 0.03. That means that if you decreased by 1% a year, you would go down a little bit and then stagnate. If you're improving by 1% a year, it's not that it slows down more and more and more, it's that it speeds up more and more and more. So if you take the equation, it'll give you a return of 37 if you do it by 1. If you do it by 50, it'll be a much more drastic number. If you're growing at an exponential rate and it gets faster and faster, it can start out flat, right? It can start out, but then as it slowly goes up and up and up, it gets faster and faster and faster until eventually you hit the threshold of growth. Imagine it like you're on a roller coaster. You first start off sitting down, standing still, right? You're over here. You're standing still, and then as it slowly starts to speed up, you hear chugga 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 chugga, and then the roller coaster goes up the dip right before the drop, and as it goes up the dip, you still hear the chugga 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 chugga. It feels like nothing's happening, right? But then slowly, you'll hit the threshold at the apex of the big hill or whatever on a roller coaster. I don't know what it's called. You hit that big hill right before you drop, and that's where the threshold is. And the second you start dropping, chugga chugga chugga, and you just shoot down on the roller coaster, that's when the growth is exponential. An easy way to understand that is understanding our reaction to people who improve. Nobody cares about a person as they decide to go to the gym or pursue a business because they're not successful yet, right? But the second, the millisecond, the Planck instant, all that hard work pays off and the business is successful, or they're jacked with a six-pack, or both, they almost immediately start getting shown massive appreciation and love, especially from women.
Number 6. Man urinates on fellow passenger for not being allowed to smoke.
What a
Weed,
problem, man.
junk food, prawn. What do all of these addictions have in common? They make you feel good. Weed relaxes you, mellows you out, makes food taste better. It makes you a little goofy little silly guy. It makes you goofy and not take life that seriously. Junk food, it tastes great, it satisfies our hunger and temporarily reverts our ghrelin to baseline. Prawn exudes the same feeling as reproduction, one of our primary purposes for living. Now, you may be asking, if all of these things make me feel good, then why do we feel the need to quit them? Our addictions and bad habits are a product of our indulgence and our deepest desires. Weed is the desire for cortisol and relief of stress. Junk food is our desire to be full and makes the ghrelin hormone dormant, which is the direct cause of why we feel hungry in the first place. Prawn is our desire for reproduction and physical connection. But there's a caveat to these things that seemingly solve all of our problems, right? I mean, what's the purpose of, going out and actually meeting a woman, having a good life, having sex with her, if you could just watch a woman get fucked, right? You don't even need to watch another man do it. You could watch a POV to the point where you think it's you. You could go in VR. You can go in virtual reality where it literally looks like you're doing it, right? So then what's the actual, purpose that people want to quit it? After the weed dissipates, you go right back to your normal stress levels of an average human being, and your brain starts to crave weed. This creates an endless negative feedback loop. Same for junk food, but with food, where right after you start digesting the junk food, you immediately feel hungry again. So then you go right back to the junk food, because that's what solved the problem in the first place, right? And prawn. To be honest, I don't even think I need to explain this, considering it affects most young men nowadays. That immediate feeling of relief for our sexual desires, going back to it, craving it, you start lusting more, you start just looking at women weirder, until eventually you go right back to it, and then you feel depressed again. So, how do you quit these addictions that solve everything, yet right after all our problems are solved, our problems return? Because they're not permanent fixes, they're temporary. And that's what makes them so dangerous. The answer is simple, but difficult to execute. You must create a system to make the habit as undesirable as possible. James Clear explains this negative feedback loop that you get as cue, craving, response, reward. All we need to do is change our response to the craving, and our reward is satisfaction with ourselves. These 4 laws can be used for both creating a good habit and destroying a bad habit. To destroy a bad habit, for cue, for the first one, you make it invisible. Making something invisible could be telling your friends to stop vaping or smoking weed around you if you're trying to quit that, or getting a prawn blocker. For craving, make it unattractive as possible. If you're trying to quit jerking off, stroking your chicken, don't watch prawn when you get the craving for sex and intimacy. Straight up do it to your wall. Or better yet, grab a mirror. If there's a mirror in your room, when you get the craving, stare into your eyes in the mirror and do it. And watch as you become disgusted with yourself. Once you start to realize that these thoughts are just desires and they're not actually what you truly believe in, you start to cut them out of your brain. When you realize that as you're doing it in the mirror, your brain's screaming. It's on fire, screaming at you to do it to porn or to prawn. It'll get harder and harder at first, but if you keep doing it in the mirror, or have people or have people destroy your vape or take away your weed, it'll eventually get easier. For response, make it difficult. The best way to do this is to get busy, get active. If the entire day you're out lifting weights at the gym, playing basketball with the fucking I don't know how to show shooting at basketball, whatever. If you're out the entire day at the gym, working, or playing basketball with the boys, you won't get the cues or cravings for your desires. For reward, make it unsatisfying. If we go back to jerking off for a moment, wait, that sounded completely wrong. If we go back to that topic, when you nut, when you ejaculate, you want to make it as unsatisfying as possible. So if you're looking at yourself and imagining a metal pipe, you will immediately realize what you just did was a complete and utter waste of time. To understand this, we need to understand why habits stick in the first place. There's only one reason, one word to describe why they stick. Tolerance. When you first get into a bad habit, you might do it once and it feels amazing. The first time you jerk off, you're like, oh, I'm about to pee, bro. And all of a sudden, and the feeling that you get when your tolerance isn't high is amazing. It's euphoric. It's literally like cocaine. But then, the next time you do it, it's not quite as amazing, is it? And then, all of a sudden, it's not not working for you. Doing the same thing. You might have started off jerking off to a picture of Margot Robbie, but after a month straight of doing that, it's not working. So you move on to the next best thing, which is, you know, that one scene from Wolf of Wall Street. And okay, I didn't want to hand you out this amazing knowledge. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme or anything, but it's not in the book. But since we're talking about tolerance, let's talk about dopamine levels. When you raise your tolerance for a bad habit, you're also raising the threshold that it takes you to become happy. That's why when you're so extreme in a jerking off that only, like, let's say gangbangs can get you off, right? You can't just do it to basic vanilla missionary. Let's just say that. Your tolerance, your base happiness is all the way up here. Where you started was right here, but then you did it to a picture and a video, and video with sound, let's just say, or a GIF, then a video, then a montage, then a game, a montage with video, with music syncing to the shit, and it just gets like progressively worse and worse and worse until eventually you just find your fetishes and shit like that. But the same can be true in reverse. If you do a good habit, your dopamine levels, they'll end up spiking when you do something good, but then that baseline will actually drop. Once that dopamine drops, your baseline also goes down. When you do a bad habit, your dopamine goes up and your baseline goes up, right? Of dopamine in your brain. In plain English, this means that the higher that the baseline goes, the higher that this line goes, the harder it is for you to be satisfied, the harder it is for you to be happy. Where if you have good habits, your baseline actually gets lower and lower to the point where you're kind of always happy, because this threshold that you need to meet is so easy to achieve. Think about it this way. If you start off, like, let's say 2 years ago with a baseline of this, and this is where you wake up, you're not going to be happy until you do a few things that make you happy. But if you do a bunch of good habits and you make yourself proud, when that baseline is down here and you wake up and it's right here, you wake up satisfied with yourself. And then it gets easier and easier and easier to be happy. And that's why people are always happy. Some people, at least.
Number 13, McPizza and McSpaghetti.
So we previously discussed that in order to achieve success in any area you want in life, you need to grow exponentially per day, right? Now, how would you actually go about this? Well, this is where the Goldilocks rule comes in. We all have a set skill in anything. If you took a line and you took the highest skilled person, whatever, and the lowest skilled person, you're on this line somewhere. Your goal is to find out where it is right now. If you're playing a game against a person who is worse than you on this baseline, if you're playing a game who is worse than you by a significant margin, it's like throwing a rock into a spider web. It's gonna break. Or a rock into glass. It's gonna shatter. But if you're right here, let's say in skill, and you go against someone who's significantly better than you, it's like throwing a rock into a brick wall. The rock is more likely to shatter than the brick wall. You fail. The key to finding improvement is the abuse of the Goldilocks rule. First, you find your skill range, right? Let's say we're right here. Wherever it feels uncomfortable, but not enough to discourage you completely before you even start, that is where improvement is made. This is what's known as the Goldilocks rule. It's going slightly above where you are. You are struggling, you are failing, but just enough to where you can learn from your mistakes and push past where you were before you even started. So if you're running a mile a day for a month, consider upping that to 1.25 miles a day for a month. And slowly but surely, up the uncomfortability. As you do this, you will come to realize that our brains and our bodies are built for this. That's why in the gym, progressive overload is the most important thing. Doing one more rep than last time. If I was doing bicep curls and last time I did 11 reps, I should do 12 reps. Or doing more time under tension than last time is the only thing that will bring you more strength or muscle. If you only lift the same weight every day at the same reps in the same time under tension, you will never be able to lift more.
Number 2, clam chowder condom.
If you're planning on developing a new habit, you might be overwhelmed and don't know where to start. We just learned about the Goldilocks rule, where you should push yourself barely past where you are right now. So how can we use that to our advantage when it comes to forming a new habit? Well, if you have a habit at any point of the day, which we all have habits because humans are creatures of habits, let's just say 1 p.m. eat lunch. Every day you usually eat lunch at 1 p.m. Write down and keep saying to yourself as you're eating your lunch at 1 p.m. that right after you finish eating, you will do, let's just say, 10 push-ups. And you can change this to literally anything. Each bite you take, do 1 push-up maybe. While you're driving, listening to music, consciously start mewing so that you can change your bone structure in your face, or do like face exercises while you're driving, and you can still drive, you can still vibe to music, but you're also consciously mewing and exercising your face. The potential for this is literally limitless, but you have to understand that specificity is key. You must say to yourself, after doing this, I will do this. Or while I'm doing this, I will also be doing this. So while you're eating, you can be reading a book. And slowly but surely, it'll become something that you're doing. Okay. And slowly but surely, it'll become something you're doing out of sheer habit.
Get it?
Number 20. Frog in a frozen vegetable bag.
Listen, I'm gonna be a bit intimate here with you for a second. If you're watching this, I assume you're probably an ambitious guy. So even though I told you the Goldilocks rule does exist and you can't just throw a rock at a brick wall, we both know you're gonna try that anyways. Because you're just like David Goggins, right? James Clear actually discusses why a person like David Goggins had such a quick mindset shift, and it is a way to build habits, but I don't recommend it because it's very extreme. If you make a grand gesture, it's way easier to build a habit. So if you wanna, let's just say if you wanna be a YouTuber, let's just say that, buying a camera is a grand gesture because now you have something that people will always, deny, like, oh, I can't do YouTube because my camera quality is too shit, right? But if you buy a camera, all of a sudden, hey, I got no excuse to just start doing it, right? Or let's just say setting a 30-day challenge for yourself to gain as much muscle as possible. So you will be consciously thinking about how do I gain as much muscle as possible in these 30 days instead of just, okay, I'm just gonna work out and gain some muscle. Because I guarantee you, if you do that for 30 days, you will gain more than if you were to just like autopilot and do it. I'm telling you, man, if you want to start running and all your life your endurance has been horrible because you're a little basement dwelling gamer like me, do not run for more than a mile to start. And especially do not run without rest. If you want to make a YouTube video, do not spend the extra 10 hours it takes to make it perfect. Simply do the best 80% you can do and then render and upload. You will come to realize that the more you rely on this perfection, this idea, this goal in your brain, the worse off you become. I'm telling you to simply trust the process and live to love it. It might sound corny as hell, but learn to love the journey, not the destination. That's all for today's daily video. This one was a bit ambitious and I have no idea how long this is going to take, but it is in my Goldilocks zone, so I think I'll do fine. I'm gonna steal this from Will Tennyson because I love him and this quote is amazing. Reading off a script, I say. Don't limit your challenges, challenge your limits. What?